paycheck comes in, and for a short moment, there's a sense of relief. Not excitement, just relief. You check your balance and think maybe this month will feel different. You worked full-time, you showed up every day, you did what you were supposed to do, and yet almost immediately that feeling fades. Rent or the mortgage is due. The car payment clears. Insurance pulls quietly in the background. Groceries cost more than last month, even though you bought the same things. Credit card minimums leave your account like clockwork. Before you've had time to plan, most of your income is already gone. If you're working full-time and still feel broke, the first thing you need to hear is this: you're not lazy, you're not irresponsible, and you're not failing because you didn't try hard enough. Pause for a moment and sit with that. Because this feeling has become incredibly common in the United States, and it's not because people suddenly forgot how to manage money. It's because the system around work, pay, debt, and everyday costs has changed in quiet but powerful ways. I'll explain why working more hours often doesn't fix this, even when it feels like it should. Think about a normal month, not an extreme one. It's just a regular month. Your paycheck hits your account, and within days, most of it is spoken for. Housing alone now takes a much larger share of income than it did a decade ago. Transportation costs are higher. Insurance premiums rise slowly but steadily. Medical expenses show up without warning. Utilities fluctuate. And none of these are optional. When most of your income is locked into fixed costs, there's very little flexibility left. And when there's no flexibility, every small problem feels big. This is why budgeting alone often doesn't relieve the stress. Budgeting can help you see the numbers, but it can't create margin when everything is already committed. You can be careful and still feel trapped. Now let's talk about credit cards, because they quietly play a bigger role here than most people realize. Credit cards often start as a bridge. They help cover gaps when costs rise faster than pay. They smooth out emergencies. They help you keep going when things feel tight. But over time, that bridge turns into pressure. Most credit cards today carry interest rates in the low to high 20s. That interest isn't loud, doesn't show up as a bill you consciously agree to. It just quietly works in the background. Here's a simple example. If you carry a $2,000 balance at a 25% interest rate, you're paying roughly $500 a year just in interest. That $500 doesn't reduce your balance, doesn't move you forward, it simply keeps you where you are. You can pay on time every month and still feel like nothing is changing. That's not a discipline problem, that's math. And this is where many people start feeling discouraged, because they're doing what they were told was responsible, but the results don't match the effort. Then credit scores enter the picture, which makes everything feel even more personal. Your credit score isn't measuring how hard you try, it's measuring risk. One of the biggest parts of that calculation is payment history, which makes up roughly 1/3 of your score. Paying on time matters because late payments signal risk, and even one late payment can hurt more than people expect. But here's the confusing part. Payment history mostly protects you from damage. It doesn't automatically improve your score if other risk signals stay high. Another major factor is credit utilization, which simply means how much of your available credit you're using. If you have a $5,000 limit and you're using $4,000, that's 80% utilization. Even with perfect payments, that level of usage can keep your score from improving. This is why people feel stuck while doing the right things. They're preventing things from getting worse, but they're not yet creating conditions for improvement. In a few minutes, I'll explain why small changes here can matter more than people expect, even without a raise or a dramatic lifestyle shift. Now think again about full-time work. For a long time, full-time employment meant stability. It meant you could cover basics and still have some room. Today, that room has shrunk. Many people respond to this pressure by working more. Extra shifts, side hours, overtime when available. And while that can help temporarily, it often doesn't fix the underlying issue. Why? Because fixed costs don't scale down. And any small increase in income often gets absorbed by higher taxes, delayed expenses, or things you've been putting off.
Ow.
So you work more, feel exhausted, and still feel broke. When people feel stuck like this, they make choices that feel logical in the moment. They rely more on credit to stay afloat.
No.
They avoid looking too closely at their finances because it feels overwhelming. They cut small expenses aggressively while ignoring the larger forces creating the stress. None of this means you're bad with money. These are normal responses to pressure. But this is also where people accidentally make things worse. For example, many people focus only on paying bills on time and assume that's enough. Paying on time is important, but it doesn't address high balances or high interest. Others chase fast money ideas because they're desperate for relief, only to end up disappointed or burned. Later, I'll show you what actually helps instead, without hype or unrealistic promises. Before that, there's one idea that changes how this whole situation feels. Feeling broke while working full-time is often a sign that your financial system doesn't have enough margin. Margin doesn't mean wealth, it means breathing room, enough space that one unexpected expense doesn't knock everything over. Once you see that, the goal changes. It's no longer about trying harder. It's about creating margins slowly and deliberately. Let's return to credit scores for a moment, because this is where small shifts can make a real difference. Payment history matters because it shows consistency. Late payments hurt because they signal instability. That's why one missed payment can cause a noticeable drop. Utilization matters because it shows dependence. Lower balances signal less risk, even if income hasn't changed. Here's another simple scenario. If you're using $4,000 out of a $5,000 limit, your utilization is 80%. If you reduce that balance to $3,000, your utilization drops to 60%. That one change can do more for your score than months of perfect payments alone. This is why progress often feels invisible until something finally shifts. Interest then slows everything down, making patience harder. This combination is why so many Americans feel broke despite working full-time. They're surviving but not building margin. Now let's talk about income in a realistic way. Being careful can only go so far when costs keep rising. At some point, income flexibility matters more than willpower. That doesn't mean chasing risky schemes or working non-stop. It means choosing slow, predictable ways to bring in extra money without burning out. This is where boring income wins. Gig work works because it's flexible and immediate. Freelancing works because skills compound over time. Simple service-based work works because demand stays steady. These options aren't exciting, but they're controllable. Fast money usually backfires because it relies on hype, timing, or luck. Slow money works because it's steady and boring. You don't need multiple income streams. You need one realistic option that fits your life. Now let's make this practical. Today the goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. Get where your money is already committed. Identify fixed costs. Notice which debt has the highest interest. Avoid adding new balances if you can. That alone reduces mental pressure. This week, focus on protection. Let's automate minimum payments so nothing slips. Look for small opportunities to reduce utilization, even slightly. Progress doesn't need to be dramatic to matter. This month, focus on margin. One realistic income move. One boring, predictable step that creates breathing room. So that breathing room is what makes everything else easier. If you're working full-time and still feel broke, it doesn't mean you failed. It means the system is tight, and no one explained it clearly. Financial repair is slow. It doesn't feel flashy, but it is possible. And once you understand what's really happening, you stop fighting yourself and start working with reality instead. There's more clarity ahead. We'll take it one piece at a time.